7 things you should never do with an automatic transmission. At first glance, driving a car with an automatic transmission may seem easier than driving a manual. The interface of automatic vehicles is often simpler, and new drivers don't have to struggle with the seemingly unruly stick shift and clutch. This is supposed to allow them to concentrate on the road better. Besides, an automatic transmission nails uphill driving and stop-and-go traffic. But even though driving an automatic may look like a walk in the park, there are still some ways you can unwittingly mess up your transmission. So here are 7 of the most dangerous mistakes you can make when driving an automatic. And don't forget that we have all kinds of useful videos like this one on our channel, so be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of the daily uploads here on the Bright Side of Life. Number 7. Don't shift from drive to reverse before your car stops moving. We've all made this mistake at least once. You're in a hurry and too impatient to come to a full and complete stop before you shift from drive to reverse, or vice versa. But if you think this is harmless, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you can do some real damage to that transmission and its components. When you shift while your car is still moving, you're using the transmission itself to stop the car, not the brakes. If your brakes wear down, replacing them will cost you around $200. But by constantly shifting from drive to reverse while the car's still rolling, get ready for damage that can run you at least $2,500. So, choice is yours. Number 6. Never put your car in park before it stops completely. Going off that last note, this one's a similar blunder. Now, if you have a newer car, it probably won't let you make this awful mistake, since recent models use speed sensors that block this action. But if your car doesn't have this sort of equipment and you've been guilty of throwing it in park before the car stops moving from time to time, listen up. Whether you're in too much of a hurry or simply unaware of the danger, remember that you can do irreversible damage to your transmission. The park position is supposed to keep your car from rolling away, not to stop your car when it's still moving. When your car is in park, its transmission is locked up. Therefore, the wheels either can't move at all or they can move but with great difficulties. You see, when you throw it in park, a pin locks a transmission output shaft, which connects it to the wheels of your car. But if the car's still rolling when you do this, either the locking pin or the output shaft may break or become eroded. Number 5. Don't put it in neutral at stoplights. Some people just don't feel like keeping their foot on the brake pedal when stopped at a red light. Others heard from experts that when you keep your car in drive at a red light, you wear out the transmission. In any case, it's still better to keep your car in drive than to switch it to neutral when stopped at a light. First of all, when your car's in neutral, you don't have as much control over it. So if you need to make some emergency maneuver, you may not be able to execute it in time. Also, if you forgot that you've put the car in neutral and the lights turn green, you'll end up revving the engine and burning more fuel. Another strategy some people use at stoplights is the emergency brake, thinking that it'll save them gas. But the fact is that this is absolutely unnecessary. The amount of fuel you save isn't even noticeable. Try to keep your ignition on, the car in drive, and your foot on the brake whenever you're stopped at a light, so that you have total control over your vehicle. Number 4. Don't coast in neutral. Some people believe that coasting in neutral saves them gas. I mean, it makes sense. You're going downhill, so why not put it in neutral and let gravity take over? Well, the problem is that cars with automatic engines are designed in such a way that they save fuel even if the gear is in drive. They simply cut the fuel supply when you're going downhill. Secondly, letting your car coast in neutral leaves you with less control over it. You see, when you're going downhill in neutral, all you can do is slow down. You won't be able to speed up if the need arises. Besides, your car's engine runs at its lowest RPM and the oil pump works at the slowest when you're moving in neutral. For that reason, the engine doesn't cool down as well as it should and may fail due to friction and heat. Number 3. Never launch your car from a standstill. Unless you're in a NASCAR race, never ever launch your car from a standstill. Launching is basically revving up the car while it's still in neutral and then switching the gear to drive to accelerate really fast from a stopped position. And if you believe that some common sense would prevent people from doing this to their cars, think again. Plenty of drivers launch their cars all the time. This causes serious harm to the bands and clutches of the automatic transmission. When you shift, they use friction to move definite parts. And if you rev in neutral and then immediately switch to drive, these bands and clutches wear out prematurely. Even worse than that, if you keep launching your car this way, these parts won't be able to hold friction anymore. As a result, the transmission will begin to slip when it's in gear. Clutches and bands are affordable enough. What will cost you a fortune is taking out the transmission and tearing it down in order to get to the parts that need replacing. Number 2. Avoid keeping the gas tank on low. Probably every car owner out there knows that driving with the gas light on is a big no-no, and still so many of us are guilty of it. Sometimes you just can't get to a gas station. Other times you simply don't have the cash. But ignoring the low fuel light may eventually cost you much more than just filling your tank up, especially if your car has an automatic transmission. To run properly, cars need to have proper fluid pressure. On top of that, fuel keeps different elements of the car lubricated and helps the engine as well. If your tank is constantly low on fluid, these parts will wear out much faster than they would normally. Number 1. Do not let water get in the transmission. If water gets into the transmission, you're in big trouble. Even the smallest amount of water, just an ounce, can wreak havoc on your car's transmission to the point that it needs to be replaced. If you're lucky and notice the problem right away, you'll save a lot of money because the damage won't be so dramatic. The thing is that when water infiltrates a transmission, it gets absorbed by the friction lining of the clutches. This causes the glue that connects the material and the clutch plates to dissolve. Some amount of water comes out of the suspension, forming white gummy masses in different parts of the unit. That's why you can't just flush the unit to get rid of the water. On top of that, the water will cause rust to form on the metal parts of the transmission. The consequences depend on how fast you recognize the problem. Unfortunately, the most common course of action is to overhaul the transmission. Are you guilty of any of these mistakes? Have you heard of any other driving habits that can damage an automatic transmission? Tell us in the comments section below. Give us a thumbs up for trying to keep your vehicle safe and sound, and spread the message by sending the video to all the drivers you know. Remember to subscribe and join us on the bright side of life. See you next time.